West Georgia dials up a 29-yard score on 4th and 6.
D1, baby. Go Wolves.
We won.
Yay!
Yeah.
Go Wolves!
24-6, a much-needed victory at home after a 5-week hiatus playing at Rayland Field. We showed up and showed out on defense. The offense was incredibly anemic, but the defense stepped up big. Gavin, you were at the game. Take us through how it felt seeing your defense perform like we knew it could, perform like it did last season, and lead the team to a strong W.
I mean, it felt great seeing that defense performing so well. You know, we knew going into this matchup and going into the season that the offense was going to be struggling heavily. We knew that we had to rely on the defense to be able to perform when we needed them to, and they did exactly that. I mean, Carly, she'll join us later in the show, but she was on the sideline. She even mentioned to David Dean. She said, how about that defense? You know what I mean? He hit his ramble, you know, said his coach things to get past the interview, past the questions, but even he knows at this point, this offense has got to figure out something to stay competitive in these games. West Alabama was not a tough matchup. There's no reason that we shouldn't have beat them by 40, in my opinion. Their defense was awful. So we have to find ways to pick better plays and cater to the strengths of our offensive weapons. Our defense is the only reason we're in these games.
Yeah, I feel like you're exactly right. I mean, our defense kept West Alabama from having a touchdown for the entire game. I mean, all of their points came from field goals. And, you know, but with our offense, those field goals came from 2 West Georgia turnovers. So to your point, our offense is just abysmal.
194 total yards, just over 3 yards per play. Something has to change on offense. Yes, it felt great winning 24-6. The defense was incredibly dominant. We get all of that. But there was a sequence on Saturday that was incredibly alarming, okay? We recover a fumble and take over on the 3-yard line. Gavin and I are trying to record it for social media, obviously, because our great social media director, Richard, was, on vacation. It's spring break 2.0, baby. He's out there making some friends, having some fun. First play from the 3-yard line. First and goal, run up the middle. Second play, run up the middle. Third play, run up the middle. Same formation, same exact ball fake, same the plays.
The line pulled the same way.
It was this. I did 3 identical plays 3 times in a row, and then on 4th and goal, we're like, you know what? We're not going to take the points. We're going to go for it. And it was just this really awkward.
They basically forced the ball to the back of the end zone as a jump ball.
Yeah. On 4th and goal
Make
from the 3.
that make sense. Make it make sense.
The play calling has to improve, because I promise you, as this season winds down, that winning record's going to turn to a losing record very quickly if we keep this up on offense.
You know what that sounds like to me? It sounds like a coaching staff just throwing their hands up. Yeah, the defense gave us a big-time turnover. We're right here on the goal line, but we don't know what we have.
It seems like they're not prepared to make a decision in real time, because they weren't expecting that turnover to happen. So they're still sitting there trying to figure out the playbook again on their next offensive drive. You have to be prepared on the drop of a pen to be able to flip that script and lead your offense to score. It just makes no sense to me. It has to be coaching is the issue, because we have the talent.
Look, if you're not prepared in week 6, what does that tell you about your team?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's really true. I mean, no one is ever prepared for a turnover, so I feel like we all need to be on our toes.
Exactly. If your team is not prepared in, what is this, week 6 or 7 of the season, that tells you everything you need to know about the coaching staff, the personnel, everything. This team is just not all the way there. They got away with the win, but that whole little sequence, the lack of preparation for a turnover, things of that nature, that tells you everything you need to know about that team.
Things
right
of
there.
that nature. Sorry, it's a classic Reed catchphrase.
The way we were calling plays on Saturday looked like we had taken too many trips to Printer's Ale, okay? Wow. And that is a great chance to remind you guys, Wolf Sports Network is brought to you by Printer's Ale. College students who binge drank alcohol at least 3 times per week were roughly 6 times more likely to perform poorly on a test or a project as a result of drinking. That is why Printer's Ale has joined Wolf Radio and Wolf Sports Network's Drink Responsibly campaign to remind students drinking should be done responsibly and in an environment that discourages overindulging. Faculty won't take hangovers as excuses.
Transition of the year. In the NFL, only one thing matters: chasing a dynasty.
Your hometown Atlanta Falcons had a huge win yesterday at the Benz, 21-19 on a Younghoe Koo game-winning field goal. Desmond Ridder, for all the crap we've given him, showed up and showed out with 329 passing yards and a touchdown, arguably the best game of his career. Now, looking at the NFC South landscape, the Saints looked great yesterday as well. A 34-0 road win over the dismal Patriots, arguably the worst team in the NFL right now. They may have taken that baton from Chicago. Buccaneers had a bye week. Panthers lost again. So right now it is a 3-horse race in the NFC South. The Buccaneers are up half a game, but they've played one less. They're 3-1 going into the bye. The Falcons and the Saints are both 3-2. Richard, going to kick this off with you first. Who in the NFC South right now would you take to win the division?
As of right now, I'm still sitting with the Buccaneers. They have a great roster still. It's essentially the same roster they had in the Super Bowl. A few differences, of course. There's going to be differences on the roster. Baker Mayfield's been playing solid. They still have a good receiving core. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. They're a solid squad. They're not the best team in the NFC, but they're not the worst either. But I do think they are good enough to win the NFC South. If the Saints can put it all together, they looked great yesterday. Like, their defense looked good. They have the weapons on offense. Alvin Kamara's back. Derek Carr's back. I mean, if the Saints play up to their full potential, they could win it. But as things look right now, I'll still like the Bucs.
You know, if our entire season consisted of home games, I think that we win. We go undefeated, right? Desmond Ridder has never lost at home in the Benz, which is kind of a cool stat. And yeah, he had a great game. Like you said, Brendan, probably the game of his entire career so far. Definitely the game of his entire career so far. But that's the issue. It took a game of his life in the NFL just to compete with the Houston Texans. And yes, you can argue the Houston Texans defense is a little stingy. They don't give up too much on the ground. They stopped the run game pretty well, to be honest. I mean, Bijan and Tyler Algier were held to very minimum yards compared to most games that we've seen them. So they did everything right. It just so happened that Desmond Ridder had a great game, great passing attack. We incorporated Kyle Pitts more, which that's what fans have been calling for. And finally, Arthur Smith did something about it, and we saw good things come from it. We incorporated Drake London more. We incorporated Jonnu Smith more. We even used Scotty Miller in a play. So seeing this offense evolve is a great sign for this Atlanta Falcons team. However, it shouldn't take Desmond Ridder having the game of his life to beat the Texans. It just shouldn't. Our defense played really well. They had an Atlanta Falcons defensive game, and they did exactly what they needed to do. Jesse Bates almost had another interception. A.J. Terrell went down at some point in the game. He came back, and he was playing well. Okuda started stepping up a little bit more. But just looking at this Falcons team, I'm still concerned. You know, Desmond Ridder is still way too inconsistent, and I'll keep preaching that until he shows me that he can be consistent. We shouldn't have to rely on either one or the other parts of our offense just to be able to compete in games against a mid-level Houston Texans team, in my opinion. If we can figure out how to get both sides of the offense running the ball and passing the ball together and have our defense just continue playing the way they are, I think we'd easily win the division. But Baker Mayfield is leading those Bucs to a great season so far. He's proven a lot of his doubters wrong yet again, but I'm still not convinced. Brennan, you said it before. Baker Mayfield pops off the first couple weeks of the year, every year it seems, and all of a sudden he starts to fall off. The Saints only won by that much because Alvin Kamara came back and they just kept feeding him the ball. I think the division is still up for grabs, to be honest. I think it's anybody's game. But I will say, if the Atlanta Falcons figure out how to be consistent on both ends of the offense and just have that defense still play the way they're playing, we'll have no problem with the division.
Yeah, Gavin, you took the words right out of my mouth. Like, I agree with everything you said. I feel like it's a little too early to pick who is the winner of the division because NFC South is such a up-in-the-air division as it is. It could go to any three teams, not counting the Panthers. So it can really go to anyone. But really with the Falcons, like you were saying, our defense, they just need to keep doing what they're doing. They kept the Texans from having a touchdown until, I think, late in the fourth quarter. So that needs to keep going. But like you said, Desmond Ridder hasn't really done that much to prove that he's that guy. Yes, he had the game of his life yesterday, but it was, like you said, at home. He's never lost a game at home. I need him to win a few games away, and then that'll make the decision for me. Also, seeing more of Kyle Pitts and Drake London getting looks, I really like that.
Now, I think top to bottom, Tampa Bay is the best team in the NFC South, but I think the Falcons are going to win the division. If you look at Tampa Bay's schedule, they got to play the Bills, they got to play the Niners, they got to play the Lions. The Falcons, they've already gotten the Jaguars out of the way and the Lions out of the way. The Jaguars got to go against the Buccaneers later this season. So looking at the way the schedules fell, I think the Falcons being 3-2 right now through 5 tough weeks and having a really easy schedule the rest of the way is going to do them many favors. I look at Tampa Bay. I think they're a team that came out hot, but I think being a little bit more of a veteran team, they're going to fall off as the year goes on. Getting Kyle Pitts involved has been the key. Look at him yesterday, looking like the guy they drafted 4th overall to be that franchise guy. And it's been there all along. If the coaching staff gets him the ball, good things happen. But Houston deserves a lot of credit too. Big win over my Steelers last week. Obviously, going on the road against a really good team, a much more talented team. They hung in there and very well could have won that game. I think DeMeco Ryans in Houston was one of the greatest hires of the last 3 or 4 years. I think in a few years they're going to be a Super Bowl contender.
They're gonna be,
No doubt about
they're gonna
that.
be great.
Yeah.
Now, yesterday morning, across the pond in London,
Oh God.
the Jaguars got a huge 25-20 victory over who everyone thought was the best team in the AFC, the Buffalo Bills. Trevor Lawrence finally played well. Calvin Ridley went off. Christian Kirk went off. The Bills had a decent game all around, but their offense struggled. Do we think Buffalo is fraudulent?
Fraudulent is probably the craziest thing I've heard all day.
wild.
I wouldn't say they're frauds. I mean, Josh Allen's been playing much better. He's taking what the defense gives them, and that Jaguars defense just didn't give him much to work with yesterday. Yeah, that was yesterday. Okay, I was tripping, I thought. Anyway, I mean, I don't think they're frauds. I think they're still a really good team. They just dropped off the Dolphins. They have a pretty tough division to get through. But, I mean, they're a good team. The Jaguars just put it all together. They finally put it all together because they started off hot. Then they lost a pretty bad game against the Texans. They looked terrible. The offense has been struggling, but they got Travis Etienne going. Calvin really got involved. Evan Ingram.
yeah.
They got everybody involved. Christian Kirk, Trevor Lawrence looked good. He was very efficient. They still have some problems in the red zone, but they look very good against a very injury-riddled at that Bills defense.
Yep.
I still think the Bills are good, but the Jags are right there with them. Once they just all need to hit mid-season for them. They're all still getting it together. It's all week to week in the NFL.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to touch on the injuries on the defensive side of the ball for Buffalo. Halfway through the game, coming into the third quarter, they had like 6 second strings out on the field, playing a really good offense that just, like you said, just can't really find a way to piece it all together all the time. But Jacksonville did get it together, and they pulled out a great win against Buffalo. One issue I saw was Josh Allen not having enough time in the pocket, though. And yes, he's kind of known for being a guy to take a step out of the pocket and just make plays happen, similar to Patrick Mahomes in that case. But he didn't have a lot of time to get the ball where he wanted it to be. The other Josh Allen on the other side of the ball for Jacksonville, defensive end, he was getting to Josh Allen, I mean, every play it seemed. It seemed like Josh Allen from the Bills only had about maybe 2 seconds, 3 seconds at most every other play to make a decision. And when it takes that offense that Buffalo has, it needs time to develop each play. It needs at least 5 seconds per play, in my opinion, because you have guys like Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs that can just, torch defenders, get deep in the field, and that's kind of their specialty, right? And then if the play's not there, then Dalton Kincaid's open, Dawson Knox is open. Buffalo has to find a way to protect Josh Allen a little bit more. And if that gets done, then I see no issue with Buffalo continuing on playing how they've been playing, dropping off teams like the Dolphins. If they can get healthy on the defensive side, shout out Von Miller, feel bad for him. First game back, he's already hurt again in a way. So feel bad for him, veteran. He's been around for forever. Kind of the anchor of that defensive side of the ball. But if Buffalo can find a way to protect Josh Allen just a little bit longer, they'll have no issues.
Yeah, I think protection for Josh Allen is very important. But I would like to point out that the Bills had 2 opportunities to really get the lead or really get into this game. And also, it was a pretty much really close game until the fourth quarter. But the Bills defense had 2 strip sack fumbles that they couldn't really get any opportunities of. And with one of those strip sack fumbles, Josh Allen threw an interception that just wasted their whole play.
Hold on. The interception, you talking about the one where he threw to Stephon Diggs? That was a jump ball. Stephon had it.
Well,
He just had
yeah.
the ball pulled out of his hands.
I'm just saying,
that's not really Josh Allen's fault.
But I'm just saying they had 2 opportunities to get something done and they didn't. So I think we also have to think about that.
Here's the thing with Buffalo that I think is a big problem going forward. They're probably still the best team in the AFC. I feel like there's going to be a lot of think pieces out there, a lot of overreactions. There's nothing wrong with Josh Allen. Didn't play the best game, but he still was pretty decent. Like you said, Gavin, the protection around him was an issue. I think eventually they're going to get past that. But the problem is, do the Buffalo Bills have it in them to pull out games when things aren't going the right way? Look at Kansas City. One thing they've done the last 5 years, they've had so much thrown at them, and yet they find ways to win. The first Super Bowl they won, Mahomes plays terrible for 3 quarters. The 49ers are on the brink. The Chiefs find a way. The one thing about Buffalo, when nothing is going right, they seem to shrink a little bit. Think about the last playoff game against Cincinnati. Cincinnati punches them in the mouth. Buffalo doesn't respond. They go into their shell. What they need to develop is more of a killer instinct, a hard attitude where they can go into games, not play well, and still win. Because when Buffalo's on, they're kind of like those old Warriors teams where if they would beat you by, 15, 20, they're front running, they're great. But as soon as that pressure turns on, that's when you can beat them. And that's why I think Kansas City, in my opinion, is still the team to beat in the AFC. Now, very quickly, before we get to Monday Night Football, You know I got to talk about my Steelers yesterday. A 17 to 10 W over the Baltimore Ravens. I've talked a lot about Lamar, and thank God TJ Watt and company have backed it up. We were down 10-3 late. I was starting to think we need to move on from Mike Tomlin, and that still may be the case. We still might need a new coaching staff, entire new coaching staff in Pittsburgh. I believe that strongly.
Yeah, offensive coordinator, yes.
Yeah, I was
most
going to say, you
definitely.
can get the support staff
Keep
out
Mike
of there,
Tomlin,
but
though.
you can't lose Mike Tomlin.
That's the culture. That's the
that's
entire
what needs to
backbone.
change, though. Going forward, that is what needs to change.
He's a winner. He's a winner.
He's a winner, but he's good, not great. When's the last time he was great? This is something I've been stewing on for a long time. I love Mike Tomlin, but looking forward, looking at the landscape of these coaches that are winning in the NFL, as great as our win was yesterday, I do want to move on within the next 2 years. I think his style of football will deliver good results, won't deliver great results. I want a Mike McDaniel. I want someone who's an offensive mastermind. I want a genius in there. Mike Tomlin's a great football coach. We might have to debate this next week or some other time because I'm very passionate about this. I love Mike Tomlin, love everything he's done for Pittsburgh, but even with the win yesterday, I do think a change needs to eventually happen and a new culture needs to come.
This is a conversation for another day. We need about 10 minutes on this one.
It's time for some Monday Night Football.
Y'all ready?
Green Bay, Las Vegas, in Vegas. Raiders are a 2.5-point home favorite. Davante Adams, the rematch, the return of the prodigal son. Do we think Vegas at home delivers, or does Jordan Love go on the road without his best weapon in Aaron Jones and get a W? Richard, we're going to kick it off with you.
I think the Raiders get it done, man. They've had some pretty tough. Every single game they've played has been hard fought, even when Jimmy Garoppolo was down and Aiden O'Connell played. This is a talented Raiders team. They have Davante Adams. Jimmy Garoppolo is back healthy. They've got weapons. They've got Jacoby Myers. They have Josh Jacobs, who really needs to get going. Their O-line has been a little suspect at times. They've been struggling with run blocking and getting Josh Jacobs going. But I think they'll be fine. That defensive front is solid, led by Max Crosby. They're a good team. And I'm still not sold on the Green Bay Packers. I don't care what anybody says. Jordan Love, he's good. He's a stud. But they don't have the weapons necessary to really win consistently in this league. They can keep games close. Their defense is pretty good. They're getting healthy. Eric Stokes is back from injury. I can't wait to see him play again. He was extremely good his rookie year, great at Georgia, but he's been hurt past season and a half. So he's coming back today. It's going to give him a little bit of boost, but no Aaron Jones, their best weapon. No real consistent receivers. They really just play with receivers number 2s and 3s that step up every now and again, then disappear for the rest of the game. I think the Raiders pull it out, man.
Yeah, I think I agree with you on that. The problem with Green Bay for me is, Jordan Love's been having a great season so far, compared to what most expected him to have. My problem with Green Bay is the inconsistency. They're either on fire or they're just ice cold. Exactly. There's no consistency there, and that kind of plays into your point about their skill positions. It's going to take one of those wide receiver 3s, wide receiver 2s to step up like Romeo Doubs. And I know Christian Watson's back. He's healthy, but at the same time, he's still a big question mark for me because I don't know if Jordan Love and him have the chemistry necessary. Vegas has a great team, in my opinion. I think the problem is they're in a division with the Chargers, with the Chiefs, so they kind of get overlooked. That defense side of the ball is still a little suspect for me. Yeah, Max Crosby, he's a great player, but that secondary is awful, in my opinion. And I think it doesn't really affect him that much just because of Green Bay's lack of wide receiver talent. I think it'll be a close one, but I think the Raiders get it done in probably 3 points. I think they win by a field goal.
This is one of the hardest Monday Night Football games of the year to pick, in my opinion, because you look at these two teams and they're in a weird spot, right? Because you got Green Bay, the first year without Aaron Rodgers, the reality's starting to kick in. Jordan Love's been really great, but the problem is he's been really great relative to what we expected. He hasn't been that Aaron Rodgers great that can kind of will your team to a different level of greatness. When one thing goes bad for Jordan Love, a bunch of things go bad. As many faults as the Raiders have, I think they get it done tonight at home. Jimmy G, classic game. Davante Adams, he's questionable. He's going to play, go out there, get 100 receiving yards. I think the Raiders get it done by a field goal. It's going to be very, very close, though. Follow Dine West on Instagram at UWG_Dine_ to keep up on dining hall hours and retail hours. Never get caught missing good food or closings when you're hungry. When we come back, it's college football time.
Hey, this is
Hey, chat. Sorry about the time constraint on NFL. We couldn't really get into what we wanted to get into with the Cowboys and 49ers. The Cowboys getting absolutely destroyed out in the Bay Area. If I was them, I would have jumped in the ocean, being that close to it. Okay, how they got ran through. That was really bad.
Dak Prescott was benched for Cooper Rush with 8 minutes left in the game. That's all you need to know. So,
and I think Cooper Rush should start the next week.
That's a hot take, but it might be right.
Bench Dak.
Are we going to start a petition now? Bench Dak?
Well, I want the Cowboys to lose, so please, Dallas, keep Dak out there, buddy. That's your best chance right there.
Currently watching the Braves game, stressing out real bad. It's not been a great first inning for the Braves so far. So,
and just to remind the great people of America, oh man, Gavin's mic keeps breaking. Just to remind the great people of America, I mean, I did pick the Phillies to win the series, so
all right.
Smart money was on Philadelphia, but
and just like that, we are muting the mic, so Brennan stops talking. We'll be back after the break.
New episodes come out at 5 p.m. on the first Friday of every month, wherever you listen to your podcasts. That includes Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, and iHeartRadio. You won't want to miss it.
In a recent survey, almost 53% of full-time college students ages 18 to 22 drank alcohol in the past month. That is why Printers Ale has joined Wolf Radio and Wolf Sports Network's Drink Responsibly campaign to remind you there is no drinking under the age of 21. Never drink and drive, even if it's just one beer, and add food and water when you drink so you don't end up texting your ex. Know your limits.
Baby, it's college football time. Give me my theme music.
Oklahoma beats Texas 34-30 in the Red River rivalry to vault in the top 5 in the AP poll, knocking Texas down. Do we think Oklahoma is one of the best teams in the country, and is Texas now back?
Texas is back. Okay, I'll answer both questions quickly. Texas is definitely back. They're still here. They're here to stay. But Oklahoma's right there with them. They are showing that both of these teams are ready for the move to the SEC. Because let's not forget, let's not be blinded by this score and the rankings, the fact that Oklahoma was ranked 12th when they came in and beat number 3 Texas. Texas is a really good team. They came out, they beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa. That is not an easy thing to do no matter what Bama team you are facing. This isn't the greatest Bama team, but they're still playing Bama in Tuscaloosa. They went in there and got it done convincingly. And Oklahoma came in. They didn't flinch. People have been saying Oklahoma hasn't played anybody all year. Well, they're showing that doesn't mean anything. It matters what you do when you play tough competition. And Oklahoma came in here. They showed up and showed out. Dylan Gabriel showed that he was the best quarterback on the field Saturday.
Definitely.
Because he was. Rushing the ball and throwing the ball, he was dynamic. He averaged 7.5 yards per throw. Oklahoma's good, man. I can't wait for the rematch because it's probably going to happen in the Big 12 championship.
Yeah, and there might be some people that are quick to say that Texas is now out of the running for the playoff, but that's completely false. Not even close to being true. Like you said, it's probably going to be another rematch, and it'll be a great game. And really, I think it was one of those cases of any given Sunday. You know what I mean? Because Texas is still a great team. They had every reason to win that game as well. So Oklahoma just got the better of them. But I think that Texas is not in trouble in any way, especially after like what you said, beating a solid Bama team. I think that they still have every tool that they need to get far in the playoff and maybe even get a national championship. So it was a great game, another great addition to the rivalry, and I look forward to the rematch.
I honestly think the only reason that Texas lost this game is because of just their mistakes. I mean, they had 3 turnovers, and Oklahoma had none. So, I mean, really, I think it was just the mistakes, and I think Oklahoma capitalized off of those.
Yeah, Oklahoma definitely did.
See, looking at these two teams, as Michael does great work fixing Gavin's mic, looking at these two teams, I still think Texas is the better football team. Looking at Quinn Ewers' 2 interceptions in the first 5 minutes, that's what lost them the game. I think Oklahoma is a great team. I still think Texas is a great team. And as Gavin alluded to, They are not out of the playoff hunt yet, not even close. One loss, they could still get to the Big 12 championship. It's going to be tough now, but they could still get there. And an 11-1 Texas team sitting there having beaten Alabama and their only loss being in the Red River rivalry, they still have a great shot at making this playoff field because we look across the playoff landscape and all of these teams have shown flaws. None more so at the top, we can argue, than Georgia before this past weekend. But at home, they had an incredible showing, destroying Kentucky 51-13. The offense finally got going. The defense stepped up and shut down the run. Kentucky was coming off a big win against Florida a few weeks ago. But looking at this landscape, Georgia just said basically the East is still all ours. Do we think Georgia's 100% back?
Oh, yeah, they're definitely ready. They're finally ready. Everybody looks comfortable. Carson Beck looked very comfortable last week against Auburn, but it was a very close game, so people kind of overlooked it. Well, this week he really asserted his dominance. Carson Beck. The running backs look solid. I mean, we're not elite at the running back position, but they all look solid, all giving out good time, big-time performances. Marcus Rosemy-Jack Saint is stepping up as our wide receiver one, other than Brock Bowers, because he's obviously our best receiver. But Marcus Rosemy-Jack Saint had 4 catches for 99 yards and a touchdown. He is a dog. So is Ra Thomas. I mean, this Georgia
That
team
catch from Rara was crazy.
Oh,
That's
it was
what I had that on.
insane. Head tap of the century. But, I mean, it's all finally coming together. Mike Bobo is loosening up. He's not playing as conservative as he did when he was in the beginning of the season and when he was our offensive coordinator years and years ago. He's loosening up. This offense is really starting to flow and getting hot right at the right time as we get into the midst of SEC play. So I just try to tell everybody to stay calm, wait till this team hits midseason form, and now they're ready to run with the best.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest question mark going into SEC play in general was Mike Bobo for me. I mean, I went to the UAB game, and that was just a struggle to watch. That offense was so stale. Watching 4 straight run up the middle plays, kind of similar to UWG. It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
But, you know, I was getting so tired of watching this offense because I knew what the offense was capable of. I think Richard can agree. You know, as Georgia fans, we're used to seeing, you know, electric offenses the last couple of years, just deep ball after deep ball, especially with Stetson Bennett. Just, I mean, airing it out almost every other player, right? So it was definitely a big change coming into this year, and we knew it would be losing Todd Monken. But midseason form it's a great term because you see where a lot of teams will bend and break, and a lot of teams will step up. And I think Georgia's done the good thing. They've really stepped up their play, and trusting Carson Beck was the biggest thing Mike Bobo had to do. And we're seeing that he's doing it. We saw it in the Auburn game, like you alluded to, Richard, and we saw it in the Kentucky game. He let Carson Beck do his thing. I've seen some people even put Carson Beck's name in for Heisman, but that's another conversation. So I know Brock Bowers is tied for second in voting right now. He should be. But, yeah, Georgia's finally figuring it out. Our defense is still solid. I'm still a little concerned with our secondary, but we were able to stop Kentucky's run really well, and that's Kentucky's bread and butter. They run the ball really well. Auburn ran it down our throats a couple of weeks ago, so just seeing that run defense really step up was a really good sign for me. So I think Georgia's putting it all together.
See, going into this game, the only chance Kentucky had of keeping it close was running the ball. We saw Ray Davis against Florida, over 200 yards on the ground, absolutely decimating them, controlling the time of possession, all those things. Georgia had 600 yards of offense and held Kentucky under 200. They shut down the run game completely. Ray Davis had 15 carries for 59 yards, under 4 yards a carry. Absolute domination, and that is how Georgia can be a contender this season. Obviously, they're a contender every single year, but to three-peat, that defense is going to have to step up, stop the run, and make teams throw on them. So really, just as we saw last year, Ohio State almost did it. The only way you can beat Georgia, you can have a great running game, but you're going to have to hit those deep shots down the field and score those points because Georgia's offense, yes, we know Kentucky isn't exactly a world-beating defense, but still, it's very impressive against an SEC school, albeit it was at home and night game, to step up. A lot of questions about that offense, struggling against the 2 SEC opponents before this. They answered a lot of questions on Saturday night. Now, Alabama answered the bell in a big way, down 17-10 at halftime in Aggie land, coming all the way back to win 26-20. Jalen Milroe with a career performance, 321 yards, 3 touchdowns through the air. Alabama could have won by 2 touchdowns. There was a blocked field goal, got called back. It was a comedy of errors for Alabama. One of the most penalized games under Nick Saban, and yet they still won. Richard, same question as Georgia. Is Bama finally back?
Oh, yeah, they're here, and they're ready to win the SEC West because I think that was the toughest game in front of them. From a style standpoint, the way I view this Bama team going into this A&M game, I fully expected A&M to find a way to win it because I looked at Bama, and I was like, okay, they're going to live and die by the run, whether it's with Jalen Milroe or the flat-out running game. And Texas A&M did that. They flat out stopped the run. But what I didn't expect was for Bama to get in their stride, passing the ball. Jalen Milroe looked great. Jermaine Burton looked great. 9 receptions for 197 and 2 touchdowns. I mean, this Bama team looks ready, and the rest of the SEC West is wide open. LSU's defense is atrocious. Jaden Daniels is playing great, but their defense is bad. They're going to have a tough test. They play Arkansas this week, don't they, Brendan?
Yep.
Yes.
Arkansas plays everybody tough, but Arkansas's O-line is abysmal, and we saw that Bama D-line is ready. We saw it last week against Texas A&M. The SEC West is wide open for Bama's taking. They're back, and they're ready to win it.
Now, very quickly, we have to touch on USC Arizona. USC barely surviving Arizona. Their second straight close call against a very inferior Pac-12 opponent. Is USC officially a fraud?
Yes. Yes, it's because of their defense. Caleb Williams is there. He's going to keep them in every game. And we got Super Caleb the other day. They didn't really have it going in the past game and went out and won it. He just went out and took that game. Caleb Williams is uber talented, so they're going to be in every single game. But their defense is awful. Colorado exposed it. Who did they just play? Arizona exposed it. Took them to triple overtime. When they have to play the Oregons and the Washingtons, maybe even Utah, if they can get Cam Rising back in time to play against USC, they're going to be exposed. It's going to happen because it's already been happening, but they're going to lose when they face the Oregons, the Washingtons, teams that can get a stop and that they won't be able to stop.
I know we came into this season knowing that USC's defense was going to be a big question mark, and it's just proven to be right. And I know I had USC in my playoff prediction, but it's starting to not look too hot on that. Like you said, Caleb Williams is always going to keep them in games, especially close games. For me, it's just going to be, can that defense step up the rest of the season? If they're even able to play a slight amount better than what they're playing right now, it'll be more convincing to keep them in the playoff picture. But as of right now, I think they're out of it.
I think next week at Notre Dame is the first game USC drops this season. I think they might drop the next 2 against Notre Dame and Utah. Now, if you're a USC fan and you want a great place to go watch them lose next weekend, look no further than Jefferson's in Carrollton, okay? With 20 flat screen TVs, a full bar with 16 draft beers, please drink responsibly, a covered porch, an outdoor area for cornhole and more, it's the perfect spot. Whether it's just a big game or you want a chill afternoon with your friends and family, Jefferson's in Carrollton is your full stop for fun. Located at 342 Maple Street, go on their website at jeffersons.com or follow them on Instagram at Jeffersons_Carrollton.
He's out.
And we're in. Batter up.
Now, currently,
Oh, man.
the Atlanta Braves are down 1-0 in the
God.
series to the Philadelphia Phillies, and they're down 1-0 right now to the Philadelphia Phillies. Currently, Atlanta, Game 2 going on. Gavin, you are our baseball guy at the station, so we're going to kick it off with you. What are your thoughts? What were your thoughts last game? What were your thoughts this game? How do you feel about everything? Where's your mind at right now?
Where's my mind at?
Yeah, where's your mind at?
My mind wants to be in Truist right now, rooting them on, but yeah, we didn't start out too hot. And everybody knew that this series is probably going to be the toughest divisional series out of the entire league. Phillies are World Series capable, so are we. And you can't say that about most of the other matchups with both teams being fully capable of getting to a World Series and winning it. We knew Game 1 was going to be extremely important. Spencer Strider had a pretty good game. I mean, he only gave up 2 runs in that third run. Third run was from catcher's interference that the fans at Truist didn't like too well. They were throwing stuff on the field. Not a good look at all. That's what Philly fans do. But we knew Game 1 was going to be so important to set the tone for the series, and Philadelphia came in and they got it done. So that makes Game 2 right now so much more important, in my opinion. Max Fried's on the mound right now. He had a shaky first inning. Philly scored 1 run, loaded the bases, finally got the out on a weak grounder to Matt Olson. So it's just a constant worry. You know, the Phillies are our kryptonite in the postseason, it seems, and it sucks when the Phillies come in as, in my opinion, the hottest team 2 years in a row in the playoffs. So it's going to continue to be a tough series. But if we lose this game, I really have no faith that we make it out of Philly alive. I think this game is a must-win, even more than Game 1 was, especially with our arguable ace number 1 compared to Spencer Strider and Max Fried on the mound right now. So this is definitely going to be an important game, the most important game in the series. I'm really nervous, not gonna lie. I'm kind of stumbling on my words, and I'm nervous. I don't want to get put out in the NLDS 2 years in a row by the same team.
Yeah, I think it's just something about the Phillies in October. I mean, it's the same situation as last year, so I definitely agree with Gavin that this is a must-win for the Braves.
I mean, you know, the year that we won the World Series, right? We came in as the hottest team, and what do? We went all the way. And this is the same mantra we keep on repeating. The hottest team in baseball usually gets the farthest. And, you know, the regular season is a completely different season. Postseason is a new season. So I know the Braves did a lot to try and prepare for that break that they got before the NLDS started, but it didn't seem like it was enough. We're looking really sloppy. The offense has just gone so quiet. That's the biggest issue. Our pitching's been pretty good. The bullpen didn't have a terrible game last night or 2 nights ago, which really surprised me. The bullpen's pitching a lot better than they did at the end of the regular season. So, you know, we have to find a way for these bats to heat up. The Phillies have their ace on the mound in Zach Wheeler in Game 2. They put on their third starter in Ranger Suarez yesterday or 2 days ago, and they still beat us. So with Zach Wheeler on the mound right now, we have to wait to hit him.
You know, I usually save the glasses for college football, Dion, you know the whole bit, but, you know, today I'm going to have to do something a little different. I'm putting on the black shades for the funeral of the Atlanta Braves because I'm sorry, it's over. I mean, I want you guys to win, I really do, but I picked against you and for good reason. Like Gavin said, this Philadelphia Phillies team has been the hottest team in baseball going into the last 2 postseasons. But you know what really did it in for the Braves, in my opinion, last game? Was Brian Snitker's bonehead decision to change the lineup that had worked so well for 162 games. You have one of the greatest offenses of all time, but you decide to change your lineup and look what the results were. And some people can say, well, they just weren't hitting. That's the issue. No, it's a big issue. And let me get into why, okay? So game 1. Acuna leading off, you have Austin Riley in the 2-hole. Do you realize Austin Riley has been one of the worst hitters in the MLB this season when a runner is in scoring position? Who's going to be in scoring position more than the guy who stole 70 bases in Ronald Acuna? It makes no sense. And from a matchup perspective, going Olsen, Albies, Ozuna makes absolutely no sense. You have to sandwich Olsen between those 2 guys for the matchups, right? Because you got Ozzy, a great switch hitter. You have Ozuna with all of that power. You know a lefty's not going to want to throw to him. You have to, it doesn't matter what this segment is, right? You could go Albies, Olsen, Ozuna, Olsen, Albies, but putting Olsen in between those 2 makes him matchup proof. They can't just change a pitcher to try to, you know, affect him in a different way. I think these things are something that Brian Snitker either didn't think of or he had to learn the lesson the hard way, because switching up this lineup had a devastating impact on the Atlanta Braves. And going forward, I'm looking at a team right now, they can still win today. I'm not saying they're completely done, but it doesn't look good. The Phillies have the mental edge over them. That's a huge thing. They have the momentum. If not the Braves, who do we think wins the World Series this year?
I mean, looking at it right now, the Twins are hot, man. They're hot, and they're beating they beat the Astros last night. It was a great game in my opinion. Even if the score says something different, they went to Houston and came out with 1 win. That was what they really needed to do. Now they can go to Minnesota and try to steal the series there. The Orioles are continuing to struggle, which is kind of a surprise for a lot. You know, their pitching hasn't been the greatest. It was a high-scoring game. You know, it's funny. The Texas Rangers outscored the Dallas Cowboys yesterday, but that's besides the point. Cowboys suck. Anyway,
they do. They're so bad.
So I'm assuming Texas is probably going to beat the Baltimore Orioles. Minnesota might go and sneak a series win over the Houston Astros, and if the Twins beat the Astros, and they're the hottest team in the American League right now, so I think that they can definitely get past the Texas Rangers. The matchup's great there. I wouldn't be surprised if the Twins go to the World Series. But to be honest, I don't think the Twins can beat anyone on the National League side, in my opinion, in a 7-game series. So what really interested me was seeing the Dodgers struggle so hard against the Arizona Diamondbacks. I mean, Clayton Kershaw was out with only giving 1 out in the first inning. They had, I think, 5 runs in the first inning before getting an out. So it was just an awful scene in Los Angeles. The Dodgers had to figure something out before they just get swept by the Arizona Diamondbacks, which is really surprising to me.
You know, looking at the landscape, I think the Phillies are going to win the World Series. They were my pick beforehand, and obviously they're a trendy pick now that they're up 1-0. They're looking great tonight, but they have the experience. It's going to be them and the Astros again, and honestly, that's such a hard series to pick because I hate the Astros, hate the Phillies, but I would want to go with the Phillies in that one. I do think that Philadelphia is the hottest team right now. They're going to get it done. When we come back, our first debate of the fall. Who is the true number 1 team in college football? We'll see you then.
This is Super Bowl champion quarterback Brad Johnson, and you're listening to Sports Pat on the Wolf Sports Network.
Hey, all right, we got to talk to chat. You know, someone said my Steelers jersey's ugly. Look, I don't blame you for being kind of sad. You know, you're probably either a Falcons fan or Ravens fan. Your team doesn't have the Super Bowls we do, doesn't have the history we do. You wish you could wear a jersey, okay, that represents 6 Super Bowls, that represents one of the greatest sports cities of all time, that represents something more than just the name on the back. We represent the shield.
Now that's a perspective, but the jersey is just ugly. And that's also a possibility. The jersey just might be ugly.
Hey, you're coming from a Seahawks fan with one of the worst uniform sets in NFL history. Okay,
That's not true. The Seahawks have probably had some
I'll
of
let Carly
the
handle
best
this.
uniforms.
So who's the worst?
the Broncos have horrible uniforms.
No, you're just
Horrible
saying,
uniforms.
You're
No, they
literally
do.
just
They're
saying
so
that.
antiquated. They're
No.
so antiquated.
No, you're literally
They look
just-
like 2005 uniforms. It's time to,
You
know.
look
that's
like
kinda
you're
true.
from 2005.
That makes no sense. Wait. Now, listen. Those throwbacks yesterday were great. Go with that. That font, the piping, it's too antiquated to me. It's too Y2K. I don't need to see the Y2K on the field. I need to see either the throwbacks or the new stuff. Like the Falcons, I actually like that take. A lot of people don't like the gradient. I love the gradient. I think the gradient's nice.
Speaking of the Broncos, did y'all see what Sauce Gardner said to Russell Wilson? He said Jets country, let's ride. Russell Wilson has to be the goofiest quarterback I've seen in a long time. I mean, I feel like he's so worried about like keeping a good public face that he has no edge to him anymore. I mean, Marshawn Lynch even said that Russell Wilson was just a quarterback to him, no one special.
The problem with Russell Wilson is he's fake. That's the problem, is that he's fake. He doesn't like his teammates. He doesn't treat his teammates well. He acts like a great guy, but his treatment of his teammates tells a different story. If he was a great guy off the field like he portrays himself as, there wouldn't be an issue there. But I think people don't buy into the phony stuff. They don't buy into him, being this incredible good guy, but then he doesn't even text his teammates.
What was his alter ego again?
Mr. Unlimited.
Unlimited L's under Sean Payton.
I think Sean Payton, honestly, is more to blame, though, than Russ this year. Russ is playing really good
I just think it's
football.
funny
Yeah,
that
Russ been
Sean.
playing good ball.
I think it's funny that Sean Payton said all that about Nathaniel Hackett, and then the Jets offense cooks them. So it's just kind of a funny perspective. But we'll be back after the break ends.
You know that feeling when it's the final play of the game, you have the ball, you're running down the field with the end zone in sight.
Jacobs with running room right up the middle. Jacobs is on his way.
You're at the 15, the 10, the 5.
Who loses the football? Touchdown, Burr. The Vikings win it.
Don't be like this guy, because that's exactly how it feels to go a whole week without tuning into Sports Out of Pocket every Wednesday at 5 p.m. on the Wolf Sports Network.
Did you know on-campus dining fits all your dietary needs? Head over to the grill for a burger patty and the salad bar for a delicious low-carb meal. Follow Dine West on Instagram at UWGDine_West to keep up for your campus dining options.
Hot takes. You thought I was playing?
It's time to debate. Hot take debate. Hot take debate. Hot take debate. Hot take debate.
I'm fired up! Our first
Wow.
debate of the fall is here. We are ready. I'm going to kick it off with you first, Richard. The best team in college football is who?
The Georgia Bulldogs are the best team in college football right now. I know this landscape is wide open. There are a lot of different ways you can go with it. But Saturday night really proved it to me. The Dogs are here, and they're ready to compete. They were a little tardy to the party, got started slow, rough game against UAB. They got down early against South Carolina, but they're back. They're ready. Kirby told Bobo what he needs to do, that he needs to open the offense up, let it free, stop playing so conservative. This is not 2007 Mark Richt Georgia football anymore. We spread it out.
Gator stomp.
Yeah, we give our quarterbacks a chance to win the game. And that's exactly what they did. Carson Beck is ready. He's balling. Brock Bowers, he's balling. The Georgia Bulldogs are the best team in college football right now.
You know what, Richard?
Tell them.
I'll give you right now. They deserve to be the #1 team in the country. They're the back-to-back national champions. But Alabama is going to win the SEC this year. They get better week after week after week. I believe in Jalen Milroe more than I believe in Carson Beck. Okay? I believe in the best unit in the SEC, this Alabama defense, more than I believe in your offense or your defense. And let me tell you, Mike Bobo is still Mike No, okay? Because when the pressure is on, he will not cook. That man will not cook. Best team in the country right now? I'd actually say Michigan. They've been the most complete team. Georgia, they deserve to be ranked number 1. But at the end of the year, Alabama's winning the SEC. They're going to be the number 1 team. And guess what? Saban is getting number 8, baby.
Wow.
So, who is the team that had 14 penalties in their game and the quarterback that was sacked 6 times last weekend?
And they still won on the road. That's why they have that potential.
And that's why I'm going to go ahead and tell you that is why they will not win the SEC championship. Now, this Alabama team, they're scary. They probably played their best football last week, but it was still ugly. They still had 14 penalties, which we thought Saban had under control, but he does not. This team is still very undisciplined. The offensive line is shaky, lack of a run game. When I look at this Georgia team facing off against Bama, assuming that's the SEC championship matchup, I know Georgia will be able to throw the ball on Alabama. This Alabama defense is solid. The D-line is good, but they aren't stellar. Carson Beck is a gunslinger. He's going to let it rip. But when Georgia shuts down that Bama run game, just like A&M did, just like they just did against Kentucky, I do not trust that Jalen Milroe will be able to compete with Georgia. They won't be able to outscore Georgia. Georgia will stop them. Georgia will win the SEC over Alabama.
Carson Beck is going to look like a lost puppy against that Alabama defense. I can tell you that right
What
now.
Alabama defense?
The best defense in the country.
Child, please.
I'll tell you right now,
right.
the best defense in the country is in Tuscaloosa. We can look at them over the last 4 games in the second half, allowing only 13 points combined, stepping up when needed, holding Lane Kiffin to 10 points. One of the best offensive minds in the country, one of the best offenses in the country, period. This team is stacked top to bottom on defense. It is the deepest, best defense Alabama has had since 2018. They're going to prove it later in the year. And Jalen Milroe, coming into his own, is the best athlete on the field, whatever football field he steps onto. Give me Auburn, give me LSU, give me Tennessee, give me all the rivals now, because I'm ready.
Throw some zone coverage at him. We'll see what happens.
All right. Now, there were a lot of questions coming into this year about this Georgia Bulldogs, and trust me, I've had my doubts. I've probably had my doubts more than any other Georgia fan on the face of the earth. But what did we see against Kentucky? What was the main issue? What was the main plague that kind of hovered over that Georgia Bulldogs team? Brandon, you can answer it because you said it yourself. Was the play calling issue, correct?
Actually, it's having that embarrassing schedule, but that's also one of the issues.
You were the
too.
same person that said that. You were the same person 2 days ago that was just defending Georgia's schedule, actually, because Oklahoma game got canceled. So what are you going to do? You have to throw in an easier game. But that's besides the point. It's my turn to talk. I asked you a question you had to answer. You didn't have to keep on going.
Skip Bayless, it's my turn.
What was the main problem with this Georgia Bulldogs team? The defense was playing solid. We were still kind of figuring out the run game, but that's gotten solid. What was the biggest issue? The play calling. What did Mike Bobo do? You referred to it. Kirby stomped into his office and said, Bobo, you're going to be no anymore if you don't freaking figure out this play calling. I'm hyped. Listen. The Georgia Bulldogs are the best team in the country. I was going to go Ohio State. I was going to go Michigan, but I thought about it more. Richard kind of convinced me. Mr. Reed, Judge Reed kind of convinced me a little bit more. Georgia has figured every single thing out that they had to get done. They're entering midseason form like Mr. Reed referred to. The only thing standing in our way is a mere SEC championship game against a lackluster Alabama team that still hasn't figured out the quarterback situation in total, in my opinion. I think Milroe still might not even be the answer. That secondary from Alabama is atrocious. You know who's going to be taking advantage of that atrocious secondary? Mr. Brock Bowers, the best player in college football right now, should be number 1 in Heisman voting. Yes, he can be the first-time quarterback to win. I don't even care, not first, but whatever. What I'm saying is, the SEC is an easy road to the national championship round for the Georgia Bulldogs. Alabama's not going to give us any competition that we can't handle, that we haven't already faced in Auburn, in my opinion. I think Auburn might have played the toughest game that we'll see all year long. Bama has nothing on Georgia. They're going to get through the SEC, win the SEC championship, and then the national championship is up for grabs for a three-peat, baby.
Go ahead, Richard. You look like you got something to say.
I do have something to say. So this is pretty much turned into a Bama versus UGA, who's going to win the SEC debate, and I'm all for it. When you look at this Alabama team, let's look at the game they lost. They lost to the Texas Longhorns. How did the Texas Longhorns beat them? They weren't really running the ball exceptionally well. They had a little bit of success running it, but it wasn't really going well. What did they do? They forced Alabama to throw the ball to beat them through the air, and Texas also took advantage of a vulnerable Alabama secondary. Now, they have a solid corner in Kool-Aid McKinstry. He's solid. I'm not seeing all the hype. I wouldn't take him top 10, but I think he's a solid corner. But this Alabama secondary can be had. Caleb Downs, he's talented, but he's young. They have showed weakness in the secondary. When I look at this Georgia team, they are letting the ball fly all over the field. There are weapons everywhere, stepping up every single week. Arian Smith, track star, one of the fastest players in college football, has been struggling with drops. Ladd McConkey has been battling a back injury all year. He's arguably our top receiver. Marcus Rosemy has been rising to the occasion. Brock Bowers is having his best season yet. Even if he was out all this year, he still would have been taken top 10 in the draft, and he's having his best season yet, putting together a Heisman campaign. This UGA team is ready, and it's just a bad matchup for Alabama because they can take advantage of the things Alabama struggles with, and they still have that Kirby Smart defense.
Speaking of Kirby Smart, who's not proven he can beat Nick Saban when the lights are at its brightest. We think about 2021, losing in the SEC championship, yes, winning the national championship, but we all know if Jamison Williams is healthy, Alabama wins that. If John Mechie is
Why
healthy,
are you talking about the
Alabama
past?
wins
Why are
that.
you talking about the past right now?
Kirby is still Nick's son, and at the end of the day, Alabama's defense is going to get better week by week. It's the most talented unit in the country. Jalen Milroe, talent-wise, is still the best quarterback in the SEC, potential-wise, and I think you give him another 5, 6, 7 weeks to get ready for Georgia, he is going to answer the bell and deliver, and Nick is going to bust down that door and remind Kirby Smart who his daddy is.
Now let me go ahead and tell you. This whole debate is based on as things are at this very moment because we don't know what's going to happen in the future. For all we know, Jalen Milroe might be the best quarterback in NFL history when he goes to the league, but we don't know that. All we know is what we know right now. And as the Jalen Milroe had a good game last game, he still had an ugly interception. He is still struggling to figure it all out. Jermaine Burton had a monster game. They have potential. We know now that they have potential. But from what we've seen, if you throw a semi-complicated defense at Jalen Milroe like the one Georgia has with all the shifts and differences in coverage, he will crumble.
I wish there was like that Adam Sandler movie Click where we had a remote control, we could press fast forward and just go to December, okay? Because I am ready for a Bama, fingers crossed we get there, a Bama, Georgia rematch in the SEC Championship. But with all that being said, that's all the time we have tonight for Sports Pack. Richard, Carly, Gianna, Gavin, and Brendan signing off. Tune in Thursday. Can't wait.